House of Glory wrestling fans, I am longtime independent wrestling fan Robert. New World Rising was a great event from the Elmcore Youth Center, and it was my first HOG show in a year's time, believe it or not. The event kicks off with tag team action as we saw the New York Wrecking Crew accompanied by Matthew Ryan Shapiro as they defeated the Super Savages. Great tag team out to start the show. Then Leroy Green comes out and he wants a match with elite champion Ken Broadway, and Broadway comes out and he says, "Leroy, you want to play with the play with the big boys, and you want to play with the big boys." And Broadway then says, "I was supposed to wrestle somebody who wanted to play with the big boys, but it turned out he wanted to play with the little boys." Obviously, he was. Come on. And Broadway made light of someone who's no longer involved in the sport of wrestling. In the sport of wrestling, and then I think Broadway then tells Leroy, if you want to have a match, you can have a match right now. And out comes Kyle the Beast, who made his House of Glory debut, and he pretty much decimated poor Leroy, and eventually Kyle the Beast scored a pinfall. But after the match, Kyle continued the onslaught. And he continued the onslaught on, and eventually the referee reversed the decision, and Leroy Green had won the match on disqualification. Next up, we had a women's tag team match, as we saw. As we saw Sonya Strong and Willow Nightingale defeat Violet and Sumi Sakai in a very good matchup. Sakai had brought some chairs into play in the match, but it all didn't work out, and Sonya and Willow picked up the win. Up next, out comes Good Hank Flanders with members of his Glory Foundation. And Flanders comes out demanding a title shot. All of a sudden, out come the outsiders, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. And Nash grabs Flanders by the throat and he pushes him over the top rope out of the ring. And Nash took the microphone. I forgot what he said to address the crowd. But back to the ring actions. We saw Sasha Jenkins take on the smooth operator, Big Daddy Cruz. And yes, folks, he did come out to Sade's Smooth Operator. What a wonderful song that was. Cruz got the victory, but during the matchup, out comes this very good-looking young lady and this one gentleman in a shirt and tie, and the lady ends up giving Jenkins, I don't know if it was like a business card or something, in his hands, and eventually, that's it. One thing I forgot to mention, the Super Savages, after they lost the New York Wrecking Crew, were attacked by the House of Gangon. And I believe, I don't know if it was the man formerly known as Toasty Tom, he pushed Avenging Ben of the General Admission Wrestling Podcast as they were leaving the ring. The fifth match of the night, we saw the debuting Juba of the House of Gangon, who I believe is like the bodyguard of the current champion. He defeated another debuting man, and that was Nino Black. Juba basically annihilated this guy. They went to intermission after that. No, I'm sorry, they didn't go to intermission. Next up, we saw Ken Broadway defeat the Bad Apple, Matt McIntosh, to retain the House of Glory Crown Jewel Championship. I do apologize for mentioning it as the Elite Championship earlier on. Very good matchup there. They did go to intermission right after that, and during intermission, Super Crazy and Psychosis were doing meet and greet. And after the mission, we saw the Private Party, Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn, defeat Super Crazy and Psychosis. A very good matchup. Up next, we saw Evander James, accompanied to the ring by Matthew Ryan Shapiro, go one-on-one with head of security Alexander the Tank Balcom. Or is it Balcom? And eventually, Evander got his hand, took Shapiro's book, and hit the Tank over the head with it, and he continued the onslaught until House of Glory owner Brian XL hits the ring, and he takes the microphone and he announces to Evander that he's getting back in the ring, and he'll face him one-on-one at Adrenaline on Saturday, May 27th, when House of Glory returns to the New York City Arena, a.k.a. Club Amazura in Jamaica, Queens. And then it was main event time as Chainsaw Joe Gacy challenged the Rogue Anthony Gangone for the heavyweight championship, and I think they wound up making the match a street fight. During the matchup, they went to they had a little bleacher brawl. At one point, Gangone was thrown off the top rope through the table. Eventually, Gangone picked up the win, and Gacy, a gallant effort on his part, defying odds with the House of Gangone, and I forgot how Gangone did put Gacy away, but he did get the win, and he's still the champion. Okay, personal notes. Ty was Great City with crew members Mike Nicholas, Ernesto, Stella, Avenging Ben and Mike from the General Mission Wrestling Podcast, John Herrera, Michael Licata, who was there. Who else I remember seeing there? And I forgot what else they had mentioned. One thing I do want to say is that those hot dogs they were selling, they did not stay hot. House of Glory returns on Saturday, May 27th, as they return home to the New York City Arena in Jamaica, Queens on Saturday, May 27th. Already announced the in-ring return of the Man of Faith, Brian XL, against Evander James. Also appearing will be American Nightmare Cody Rhodes returning to House of Glory. And I believe I don't know if it is their House of Glory debut, Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. Hey. Oh, I forgot and also returning to House of Glory on May 27th, Leo Rush. I will say I sure hope House of Glory does another show at the Elmcore Youth Center on Northern Boulevard in the future. Oh, let me see. Anything else I could add to this? Nothing else I could really add to this, folks, but definitely a great show for House of Glory. It was great to see their product for the first time in a year. Hopefully, if all goes well, I will be at Adrenaline on Saturday, May 27th.